Good morning, guys. Welcome, good to see you. How many of you love this time of year? I walked outside, the birds were singing this morning. I think that was the first time I've heard that. It's like evidence that we survived winter. It's time to pack away the skis, bust out the golf clubs. It's good. Things are looking good. Hey, before we jump in today, I want to cover a couple things that are coming up. This is, of course, an exciting time of year. Things are buzzing here around the church as we're getting ready for the next few weekends. We've got Palm Sunday this Sunday, and then next week is Holy Week, a Good Friday service. If you've never been to a Good Friday service, they're awesome. It's powerful. It's candles at the end. We blow out the candles after the 7 final statements Jesus made, and then we walk out in silence. And so it helps prepare for Sunday morning and the celebration of the resurrection. And so then, of course, we'll have 3 services Sunday morning, 8, 10, and 12. And then April 27th, so the following Sunday, is going to be Baptism Sunday, and that's just a wild party. It's just awesome. Last year, we baptized over 700 people. This year, we have already got hundreds of people signed up. And I want to tell you a quick story because one of the men getting baptized in just a few weeks represents how Jesus is really good at transforming lives. Because sometimes we can hear those numbers and say, wow, that's a lot of people. That's really cool. Yeah. But maybe we miss the reality that that's not just a number. That represents lives that are literally being transformed. And so here's one example. Last September, I was in the lobby before the 9 o'clock service, and somebody walked in the front doors wearing just a full-on suit. And it wasn't Christmas Eve and it wasn't Easter. And so I think he was the only one in a suit, and he caught my attention. Eventually, I went over to him, I introduced myself, and I said, hey, how long have you been around New Life? He said, I got to tell you a crazy story. He goes, let's go sit down. And so he said, last Saturday, I hiked Mount Quandary with nothing but my dog, with 0 plans on coming down from that mountain. He said, I had it all planned out. I was going to find the right spot, and I was going to jump. And so he hiked to the spot that he had picked out. He looked at his dog one last time and then realized he couldn't do it to his dog. He couldn't leave his dog. And so he was stuck there, just like had no idea what to do because now he couldn't get back down this place that he had picked out. He said, my religion has always been pagan. He said, so when I decided I wasn't going to jump, he goes, I started calling out to all of my pagan gods I've always worshiped. He said, I've never felt so alone in my life. He said, there was nothing, silence. So he was able to text an ex-girlfriend and say, I don't know what to do. And she texted back saying, you've tried all these other gods, it's time for Jesus. So she texts him the salvation prayer. And he's looking at it. He goes, okay, I'm calling out to my pagan gods. Nothing's happening. He said, I read the prayer. He said, on the 3rd time I read that prayer out loud, the wind stopped. He said, I've never felt so loved in my life. Now, this is an army guy that for a living, he would go into combat zones and clear houses. He's a big, strong, bad dude. He said, it felt like Jesus was literally hugging me on that mountain. So he is able to get a hold of search and rescue. He's up there all night. And he makes it back down the next morning. And then next week, he walks into the doors at New Life Church. He said, I know Jesus is real. I know you guys believe in Jesus. Help me. And so we've got him connected into a fire team. He's been here. I just had lunch with him yesterday, check in with him. In fact, right now, he's at the Omelet Parlor with a fire team studying the Bible. And so he was just like, he had this just passion in his eyes. And that's one of the stories, when we're talking about people getting baptized and lives being changed, Scott is one of those examples. So can we thank Jesus for what he's doing in just among us, through us? I just want to encourage you, who does God want you to invite to the Easter services? I mean, this is one of the easiest invites of the year. And so just be thinking about it, be praying, keep your eyes open for people that you can invite, and just be intentional to see, let's be reaching out, let's be salt and light in the marketplace, and as we're inviting people to come and hear the gospel, all right? Okay, so if you've been coming to these gatherings, you know that the typical format has been an interview. And so we're going to take a month pause on that format. And the way this worked out is the person who was scheduled to be interviewed in April had to switch to a different month. And so then I got the survey results back that I sent out from you guys. And one of the points of feedback was, hey, we'd love to hear about mental and emotional health for leaders. I thought, man, I can take this one. This is an area of passion of mine. I'll give you a little bit of context about that. First of all, personally, I grew up just as a kid with a lot of anxiety. Now, at the time, I wouldn't have had language. I wouldn't even have understood what was happening. But looking back now, I clinically could have been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. We have all got a smoke detector deep in our brain, in our limbic system, that's always scanning for danger. And as a boy growing up, mine was always turned up so high. And I was always just anxious, waiting for something to happen. And I would have intrusive thoughts and images, and I had no idea what to do with them. And so one of the ways I learned how to cope and just be okay was I dove deep into sports, and especially wrestling. I just became like wrestling was my world. And I was so focused on wrestling, and I had a lot of success in high school and college. But when I was done wrestling in college and I was in my early 20s, a lot of that anxiety that I was trying to avoid came flooding back. And I had about a 3-year period in my early 20s that were just awful. It was even worse than it was when I was younger. So I had to go through a period of time of really working through some things and understanding the different layers of anxiety. And it made a significant difference. And so from time to time now, I still feel some of that, but it's night and day different than what it was. And so I've experienced this on a personal level. And now this is my 20th year at New Life. A few years into it, I also went back to school to get a master's degree in counseling. And then I went through the licensure process, the thousands of hours to be licensed. And so for the last several years, in addition to being a counselor or a pastor here, I've been a licensed counselor. And so I've literally spent tens of thousands of hours counseling people. And so that's what I want to, just some context. When I say I'm passionate about mental and emotional health, I've just spent a lot of years in this lane, helping people, helping leaders. And again, so much of that came from this conviction in me that I know how hard it is. I know what it feels like to struggle with some anxiety and some different things. And so I want to go through, we're limited on time. And so when I was first developing this, again, because I'm so passionate about it, there was so much that I realized that's just like spraying people with a fire hose, okay? I can't geek out on you. I got to chill out, and so scaled this down. So I'm going to take about 20 minutes here and go through 4 different areas. Number 1, we'll start with a biblical foundation. Hey, what does the scriptures teach us about this? And we could spend days on that, but we'll cover just a few things on that. Then the second category is the most common things, the most common patterns I've seen in leaders that actually hinder mental and emotional health. These things that I've seen countless times. Then the third area we'll cover is ways to assess mental and emotional health. Hey, how do you even know how I'm doing? So I'll share some thoughts on that. And then finally, some practices. What are some practical things that we can put into practice that will move us in the direction of greater mental and emotional health, all right? So first of all, with a biblical foundation, one of the things that's so clear is the Bible challenges us to be honest about our lives. Do you agree with that? Can we agree on that? The Bible challenges us to be honest about our lives, about our stories. The Bible doesn't edit out people's stories, the hard stuff, does it? I mean, it tells the whole story. The broken places, the ugly places in people's stories, these people we hold up as heroes. It's not edited. And when we crack open the Psalms, I mean, if you open up the Psalms to pretty much any place, there's some serious honesty on display. I'm going to read a couple examples of this from King David. We know David is the warrior. He's the man, right? He's had his man card, so to speak, as they say. He charged Goliath, killed him. He cut off his head. I mean, he was a warrior. But listen to what David wrote about his emotions, about what was happening on the inside of David, the man, the warrior, right? This is Psalm 6. David wrote, "I am worn out from my groaning. All night long I flood my bed with weeping and drench my couch with tears." Then Psalm 13, David wrote, "How long must I wrestle with my thoughts?" You ever feel like that? I'm wrestling with my thoughts. "And day after day have sorrow in my heart." And then lastly, Psalm 31, I mean, there's so many more, but here's just 3 examples. Psalm 31, David wrote, "My eyes grow weak with sorrow, my soul and body with grief. My life is consumed by anguish and my years by groaning." I mean, he was lamenting, he was grieving, it was just flowing out of this man's heart. And I imagine one of his friends coming along and reading what David wrote and say, "Hey, David, I want to give you a heads up. This is really raw, it's really honest, and just be warned that this is going to be captured and read by billions of people forever." But he models for us what it looks like to be brave, right? To be courageous, to be a warrior, to take action, and also to live with an awareness and a connection to what was happening in his inner world. I mean, we've all seen how many of you are also tired of seeing people rise, and these leaders, these gifted leaders, right? They rise to power and influence and then tragically crash. And in the process of doing that, causes so much harm. It's sobering. It's sobering. So it's a mix. It's like, oh, why does this keep happening? And also, there's got to be a better way. And so that's part of, too, the conviction and the passion I have, is I want to see leaders lead well, lead with excellence, take the gifts that God has given us and to use them well, to use them with humility, to be leaders who are empowered by the Holy Spirit, to keep in step with the Spirit, and also to just make sure we're also building a healthy inner life. I was thinking about this. We'll put this on the screen. Leaders can be legendary, right? When it comes to building teams and businesses and organizations and bank accounts, but deficient when it comes to building an inner life that can sustain all of it. And that's why we keep seeing people tip over. It's because things are not right inside. They're not healthy inside. And as the influence and as the power grows, their lives end up tipping over. Have you seen the bucket at the Great Wolf Lodge or at those water parks that are at the top of these play structures, and they're always being filled with water? And it looks like everything's fine. And then eventually there's that tipping point and everything comes like spilling out. That's what keeps happening, essentially. Is with leaders today, it's like the water represents the influence and the power, but eventually we're seeing lives tip over and it spills out and it's causing all kinds of damage. And so my response to that, first and foremost, is God, search me. It's to look in the mirror. It's I feel upset when I see another news headline. But I have to be the type of person, and you do too, where we look in the mirror first and we say, God, search me, know me. What do you want to address in me? I want to be healthy internally. I want to be the kind of leader that you can entrust with power and influence and know that my life is not going to tip over because I'm doing the inner work that can sustain it. And so one of my favorite quotes is from M. Scott Peck when it comes to mental and emotional health. And it's it's pretty simple, but I think it's powerful if we'll actually take it serious. He wrote, mental health is a radical commitment to reality. Mental health is a radical commitment to reality. And the degree to which we face reality and feel reality and act in reality is the degree to which we're becoming more mentally and emotionally healthy. Now, I want to take that idea, that mental health is a radical commitment to reality, and bring it down into the second category that we're going to talk about. The common patterns I've seen in leaders that actually hinder emotional and mental health. There's actually many areas, but here's two big areas I want to talk about that I've just seen leaders really have a hard time with when it comes to facing reality, okay? The first one is leaders have a hard time, and I can put myself in this category, all right? We can have a hard time dealing with the reality of pain, okay? You're like, man, it's 7:30. You're talking to me about pain. I just came for the chicken biscuits. But these are things, again, that it's too easy to overlook, isn't it? It's too easy to avoid and deny. And there are many factors for this, but we're as talented, as incredible as a leader can be at building a business or organization, unfortunately, they can be just as good at avoiding and denying and minimizing the things that are actually going on inside, because there's like a skill to it. You've got to actually learn over time to be able to keep that stuff, the pain inside, tucked away. And the reasons for that are many, right? Consider the cultural messages. Men don't feel. That's a weakness. Don't show vulnerability. Suck it up. Be a man. And those messages were often reinforced growing up in so many homes. And so no wonder we have so many people walking around who are really good at just avoiding and denying and stuffing away pain. And then for us leaders, we're especially vulnerable because we care about what we're building. It's all the easier to cope with that pain that we carry by doing what? By working more. You just push the throttle down even more. That's what we do. Oh, we don't want to feel that. Let's just work more. Let's just do more. And then what happens if you picture trying to hold the beach ball underwater? You can do it for a while. That's how pain is. You can stuff pain down. I can stuff pain down for a while, but it's only a matter of time before it comes back. And when it comes back, we can double down in the attempt to stuff it away and to try to do all of the things that have worked, to reach for different reliefs and coping things. But until we say, I got to face the reality that I'm human and that I carry some pain, and that doesn't make me less of a man. It doesn't make me weak. It makes me human. It means that God has created me in his image as somebody who has a heart and soul that feels. And so the reality, again, mental health is a commitment to reality. The reality is acknowledging, hey, God has made me as a person with a soul. He didn't make me a robot. He didn't make me a machine. I mean, if you think about it, whose idea were emotions? It's like God's. None of us woke up one day and said, I think I'm going to start to feel emotions. No, God put that inside of each of us. That was part of how he made us. He wired that deep inside of us. And so we're healthy again to the degree that we actually begin to understand his design. And when we avoid or try to skip over, we're actually working against his design. So here's one of the most common things I've heard over the years is a leader will come in and say, I've got some things I need to address, and they'll begin to share it. Okay, we can work through that. And I'll say, I want to understand more of your story. I want to understand more of the picture here. And so I'll begin to ask about their life and their story, and they'll begin to share things. And as they begin to share about their life, I'll begin to feel it. And I'm just listening to them. And at some point I'll pause them and say, man, you're living this. You've lived this. I'm just hearing about it and I feel it. And inevitably they'll say, well, it's not like fill in the blank. It's not like my parents beat me. It's not like I grew up on the streets in Africa without food. And they'll have their reasons why they haven't taken it serious. And I'll say, it's true. Yes, it's true that if you have two broken arms and the person next to you has two broken arms and two broken legs, it's true that they may have it worse. But I say, it's also still true that you have two broken arms and you need healing. And that's the beginning of it, is to say, you know what? I have learned how to minimize. I've learned how to compare. But if I can learn how to just acknowledge what's happened, what I carry inside of me, and not compare, not overlook it, guess what? That's where the healing begins. And it's slowing down, again, to face some of that reality. It's a process. And it's creating space to be able to say, just get real about things. And then to allow yourself the space enough to begin to feel them. And this is designed to be done in community with others. All right. Now, the last thing I'll say about this before we move on is I understand that sometimes when you tell people, hey, you gotta actually grieve. God's design for dealing with pain and loss is to grieve it. Sometimes that feels like telling somebody, hey, just speak Chinese. Go ahead. Ready? Go. And like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so often people look at me like I've got three heads. You know, when I talk to high-performing leaders, these guys who have incredible resumes, and so many of you do as well, but you know, I'll be meeting with people who have accomplished incredible things that I could only dream about. I mean, gifted people. And then they're opening up about their story and they're sharing pain. And so then I start to talk to them about, you know, God's design for us to heal is to learn to grieve. And that's when they look at me like, I don't have a clue what you're talking about, brother. And so, well, no wonder. If a person grows up being told, hey, suck it up, just keep going and be a man, of course you're not going to know God's design for grieving. All right? And so it's a process. But this is what I know. If all of us will do two things, just be honest about what's going on inside and the pain that we carry, and we're honest with ourselves about it, that's facing reality. If we're honest with God about it, that's facing reality. If we're honest with other people about it, that's facing reality. It's not a quick switch, but I guarantee if you practice that, you're moving on this path to greater mental and emotional health, all right? So that's the first thing I've seen leaders struggle with reality. Here's the second one. Leaders, we can have a hard time staying in today's reality because for a lot of us, we are visionaries, right? We naturally can look ahead and cultivate vision. And so much of the way we think is future-oriented. Anybody else like that? Like your natural bent as you begin to think about the future, you begin to think about ideas, your mind just goes to the future. And a lot of times it's exciting because you're thinking about ideas and vision. Well, the other side of that coin is we get caught up in the future so much that we get stuck in what if thinking. Well, what if this happens? And then what if that happens? Oh, and what if this happens? And what if this fails? And what if this fails? And we get in this what if thinking place. And then anxiety starts to flood our bodies. And we just kind of feel like we're always on guard. I have seen, this is one of the most common things I've seen with leaders who have been honest. It's like, I've got this low level anxiety. And it's like my brain is always trying to prepare for things that might happen. And then it's easy to have a few different things that end up coming right here. And it's hard to see the full picture of life because we've got things that we just begin to ruminate on. And it's like, well, what if that happens? And what if I run out of money? And and so then our mind just gets stuck in that place of what if thinking. And here's something that I've learned to practice and have encouraged other people to practice. It's just a simple transition in your mindset. And it's when you notice you're caught in this what if thinking place, it's pivoting to what is real today. So instead of what if, it's what is. What is real today? What can you come back to today? Because it's easy, again, to keep playing out those what if scenarios. In fact, Mark Twain wrote, "I have lived through some terrible things in life, some of which actually happened." Isn't that easy to do? Just play out those scenarios all day. And it requires that intentionality to come back again and again. Hey, what is real today? What is true today? I want to anchor my mind, not in all of the what ifs, but in what is. And the greatest reality is, who's right there with you in the moment? The great I am. He's in the moment. You talk about reality. It's anchoring in the reality that in this moment, I have the God of the universe literally with me. And Jesus said, hey, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough trouble of its own. It's come back to today, all right? So those are two things, just being real, being honest about the pain we carry as leaders, and then just being aware of our mindset and coming back to what's true today. Those are just two practices that can get you moving towards greater mental and emotional health. Okay, I've got just a few minutes left here, then we're going to kick it to the tables. Here's the third category. How do you assess mental and emotional health? And Pastor Brady, one of the things he's been saying around here for years is, and I love this quote, Pastor Brady often will say, when I'm an old man, I want to be fully human. I want to laugh when I'm supposed to laugh, and I want to cry when I'm supposed to cry. And I like this for many reasons, but it's, he's speaking to the demands and the toll that leadership can take on the soul, right? We can have a career in leadership, and we can arrive as a shell of a person. And that's one of the reasons I have so much respect for so many of you, Colin Willis and so many of you guys, Larry and Ed, you guys have arrived as older men. I wouldn't say you're an old man, all right? You're in your fourth quarter, and you're not a shell of a man. You have a soul. You're willing to laugh. I think about last month, Ed, as you were talking about your grandma. You teared up, right? And I thought that's what Brady is talking about. It's leading well. It's handling the demands that come with leadership, but not becoming a shell of a human. So here's some ways to assess. When was the last time you really laughed? I mean, really laughed. How often do you laugh? That's a simple question to assess what's going on inside of you. How often do you laugh? See, for some, what you may need to do is pull up some Nate Bargatze videos and just laugh. Some Jim Gaffigan. When I'm in a really stressful season, that's one of the last things I'll do at the end of the day. I'll pull up some comedy, some good humored comedy, and I'll just laugh. The Bible says that laughter is good medicine. It's true. Here's another question to ask. When was the last time you cried? When was the last time you allowed yourself to feel to the point you expressed it? It came out, you cried. If you can't remember, okay, there's no shame, there's no guilt in it. That's just an indicator that there's some things that are probably stuffed away inside. And that's actually exactly what happens. If there's a chronic level of anxiety, what it does is it just begins to flatten out the emotions. So that the common experience day to day is, I don't really feel too much. I just kind of feel numb, kind of feel flat, kind of got this low buzzing. I've got this pressure in my chest that I've learned how to just live with. But those are indicators. Hey, there are some things that, some dashboard lights that are blinking, that some things need addressed under the hood, all right? So how often do you laugh? When was the last time you cried? Here's another one. How present have you been lately, day to day? How present have you been? And this is something it's good to ask people close to you. Ask them, hey, how present have I been? And get their feedback. But it's easy, again, to kind of go into that autopilot mode where our mind is always on work and we're not very present. So here's the fourth one. What are you experiencing in your body? Do you ever just pause in a busy, demanding day and just pay attention to actually what's happening internally in your body? For me, a lot of times, stress and anxiety will show up right in my chest. But it often shows up for other people in your stomach, in your chest, in your head, in your back. There's a famous book called The Body Keeps the Score. Have you heard about that? But it's talking about our brains can try to deny certain realities, but our bodies won't. If we actually listen to our bodies, they will tell us what we're carrying. And your body is a great instrument, again, to communicate what's going on inside. I want to put this on the screen as well. This is an affect regulation scale. This is another way to just assess, hey, where are you at? What's going on? And so you'll see affect represents what's happening inside of you. So it's what's happening physiologically in your body and also emotionally. And so at any given point, all of us are somewhere on this scale. In the middle is the regulated zone, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's when you're present and you're calm. Your full brain is on board and working. When you get anxious and your heart starts to race, that moves you to the right, which is hyperarousal, 8, 9, 10. That's the panic, the terror. Then on the left side is hypoarousal. That's shutdown. That's when your brain is essentially saying, I'm just going to shut down. This is too much. I feel overwhelmed. Now, here's the key. This is why it's so important to pay attention to where you're at on this scale. Because if you're outside of that middle zone, your full brain isn't even on board. So you're not even able to think logically. And so how often has this happened where maybe if you're married, you have a conflict with your spouse and you get outside of that zone and the two of you just keep going at it trying to solve the issue. And what does it do? It makes it worse. Right? It's like when you get stuck in the ice and the tendency is just push the gas, you're going to dig it deeper. That's exactly what happens when we're trying to communicate, but we're outside of this zone. Again, our whole brain isn't even on board. So the key is learning, okay, this is where I'm at a 9. I'm really worked up. How do I begin to regulate? How do I learn to come back to a 6? Or if you're shut down and you just feel numb, and you just are lacking motivation. How do you learn to shift up to get to about a 4? But that's called affect regulation. And you can develop the skills to recognize where you're at and actually what you need to come back to a place of just being regulated. And so then you're present and calm. And again, then the full picture of your brain comes back on board, okay? There's a lot more, but for the sake of time, I got to keep that one short. And then here's the last way that I want to put before you that you can just assess. Pete Scazzero was a pastor in New York for 35 years, and then he went on to write a book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. It's a really good book, and if you're one of the leaders that if somebody's talking about grief, you're like, that's like telling me to speak Chinese. It's a great starting point. Emotionally Healthy Spirituality is the name of the book. But if you go onto his website, which is emotionallyhealthy.org, he has a free survey. It takes like 10 minutes. And it's designed to assess emotional health. And he's got some great questions. It's designed for leaders. And so I would recommend you jump online in the next week or so and take the survey. Just out of curiosity, right? It doesn't mean it automatically puts you in a box or a category. But here's the key to so much of this is curiosity. Are we willing to be curious about what's happening inside of us? Because if we're not curious and we're not aware, how do we attend to things? How do we deal with things? It starts with just an openness, a curiosity. Okay, so then, last but not least, some practices. And I've been going through some practices already, and so, but here's a big one: is in the practice of friendships, relationships. When was the last time you practiced sharing something with a friend that it was just hard to share? You felt like, oh man, I can feel the vulnerability burn. You ever felt that? Like, this is just a couple clicks up from what I would feel comfortable sharing. That's where mental and emotional health grows, right there. That's the reality, right? It's the practice of courage and vulnerability. And so if you would look at your life and you say, I've been pretty busy, I don't really have people that I can be honest with, that's one of the reasons we have fire teams, is these places to plug in with these groups of men and be honest as iron sharpens iron, encourage, speak life into one another. But that's probably one of the most important practices we can do, is be honest with ourselves, be honest with God, and be honest with our brothers in the Lord. All right? And then here's the last one, the last practice. I had much more, but I'm already long, so I'm going to cut all of that out and put the fire hose away. The last tool I want to put before you as a practice is called the life-giving list. I first heard this from Steve Cuss, and it's thinking about the people, the places, or the things that God uses to bring you life. Those things that recharge you. Those things that you have to be intentional to do, because otherwise work will just suck you back in. And you make a list and you make it as detailed as you can. And then you keep that list with you and you check in from season to season and ask yourself, how intentional am I being at doing these things? And so I've got like 20, probably 25 different things on my list. One of them is flying down a black on a ski run. And the sun is shining. I mean, I'm really detailed about it. And so I've listed out like 25 different things that God uses to just bring life to me. And then I again will check in and ask myself, hey, how in this season, how much am I engaging in these things that God is using to bring life? All right, so it's simple. Just carve out some time. Who are the people? What are the places and things that God uses to bring you life, okay? So we've got about 7 minutes left. We're going to put some questions on the table. Maybe you can just get to the first question. Yeah, just get to the first question, because I didn't even have time to get to these other two things on there. But how well do you pay attention to what's happening inside? And just have a few minutes of some conversation at your table if you reflect on that question, all right? And then I'll come back up here in just a few minutes and pray over us and dismiss us, all right? Ready, set, go. All right, as we prepare to dismiss here, I want to take 60 seconds and highlight a couple different things. And if you got to go, you can run out. You're welcome to stick around and stay as well. I want to draw your attention to a couple different things. On the back of this sheet of paper on the notes, it's called cognitive distortions. That's a really fancy way that you just thinking traps. Unhealthy ways of thinking. So from time to time, I think it's good to pull this out, read through that list, and just evaluate your thinking. Have you been catastrophizing, meaning like you just always go to worst case scenario and it plays in your mind again and again? But this is a way to just assess and evaluate your thinking. Something else I want to highlight is we've got these books to give away, Dangers Men Face. So in February, we had Jerry White with us, and he spoke, when we talked about this book, Don right here in the back, Don was the publisher of this book. He also actually published the Message Bible. Don is a legend around here. Love Don so much. But he said, hey, I'm going to reach out and see if I can get some books donated. And so he did his thing. And back here on your way out, if you can can grab one of these books, Dangerous Men. It's really well written, and so take that with you. Hope that blesses you. It's first come, first serve. And then lastly I was talking about a fire team. So I know we've got some fire team leaders in the room. If you're a fire team leader, would you just stand up real quickly? I always like guys to be able to just see who's in the room that's leading a fire team. We've got some guys that just started a group, and so it's a good chance to lean in and connect with one of these guys. If you're looking to connect, go find one of these guys and ask them about a fire team. We'll also we have a QR code right there that you can reach out through that as well, okay? Okay, good to see. Hey, you survived. You survived talking about pain at 7:30 in the morning. So would you open up your hands? I'm going to pray over you. Father, we acknowledge we're men that were created in your image. And part of that is you've given us a soul. You've given us an inner life. And Father, we want to face reality. We want to work through things. We want to be healthy. We want to be healthy leaders. We want to be healthy husbands, fathers. And so, Father, search us, know us. You're the one that binds up the broken places. That's what we see in the scriptures. Jesus, you bind up the brokenhearted. So come and bind up the broken places in us. Bring your healing, bring your wholeness, Lord. Father, we want to experience your joy, the fullness of your joy. And we also realize that we've got to learn to grieve and lament and be honest about what we carry. But thank you for the reality that you are the comforter, that you are with us, that you're intimately involved, that you roll up your sleeves and put your hands in the deep soil of our heart and you bring wholeness and healing. Thank you for that. Do your work in us, Lord. And Father, I pray for each of these men that today they would go forth from here experiencing your peace, your nearness, your presence. Give us ears to hear the voice of what you're saying to us today. In Jesus' name. Everybody says, amen. Hey, great to see you today. Go in the peace of the Lord.